All right, let's do this. Emerson Electric, you're in the hot seat today. We're diving deep into their annual report and ESG report.
Most people see these reports and their eyes glaze over, but they're really a treasure trove of information once you know how to read them.
Exactly. So let's break it down. For anyone who hasn't been following Emerson Electric religiously, what's their claim to fame? What do they actually do?
In a nutshell, they're all about automation solutions. And I'm not talking about your toaster here. We're talking high-level industrial-grade systems that keep essential industries running smoothly. Think valves, software, sensors.
So, like, we're talking massive oil refineries, manufacturing plants, that kind of scale.
Absolutely. But their reach extends even further than that. Think about something like a craft brewery, for instance.
Oh, interesting. Small batch IPAs powered by Emerson Electric.
You got it. Their technology is surprisingly versatile. It's found in a huge range of industries, from pharmaceuticals to food and beverage production and beyond.
Wow, it's like they're the silent force behind so much of what we rely on every day. And on top of all that, they've got this ambitious goal of making the world healthier, safer, smarter, and more sustainable.
It's a tall order, for sure. But before we get into how they're tackling that, let's talk about a major move they made this past year. They decided to part ways with a couple of big parts of their business. Incinerator.
Wait, as in garbage disposals? I thought they were all about industrial stuff.
They were, but it was a strategic move to streamline their focus. They also sold a majority stake in their climate technologies business. It's now called Copeland.
Okay, I have to admit, I'm a little confused. If they're so gung-ho about sustainability, why sell off their climate technologies branch? It seems a bit counterintuitive, right?
That's where things get interesting. This move signals a very deliberate shift in Emerson's strategy. They're homing in on a specific piece of the sustainability puzzle, industrial automation.
So instead of trying to do it all, they're focusing on what they do best and leveraging that to make other industries more efficient and sustainable.
Exactly. They're basically saying, we can have a bigger impact by empowering other industries to reduce their environmental footprint.
Makes sense. So they're doubling down on their strengths, betting on automation as the key to a greener future. But how does that translate to their bottom line? Let's talk money.
Well, their sales are certainly reflecting this strategic shift. They're up a solid 10% from 2022, totaling a cool $15.2 billion.
Okay, so people are buying what they're selling, but revenue is only part of the story. What about actual profit? What's the word on the street about that?
To get a clear picture, we need to look at what they call adjusted EBITDA, which sounds a bit intimidating, but it's just a way of measuring profit that gives us a more accurate view of the core business operations.
So it's like looking under the hood and seeing what's really driving the engine.
Exactly. And when we take a peek at Emerson's adjusted EBITDA, it reveals some interesting trends. Some segments are performing better than others, which makes sense given this big strategic shift they're going through. Their software and control segment in particular is seeing some impressive growth.
Makes sense, right. That's where all the automation magic is happening. And they even acquired a couple of companies in that space, Aspen Tech and Micromine.
You're right on the money. They're putting their money where their mouth is, investing heavily in software and control systems to solidify their position in this new era of industrial automation.
Yeah.
But there's this interesting little tidbit in their financial report. They mentioned something called a note receivable.
A note receivable? That sounds intriguing and a little mysterious.
It involves a significant sum and a bit of intrigue. But we'll come back to that later. Let's switch gears for a moment and talk about something else that's top of mind these days. Sustainability. Everyone's jumping on the sustainability bandwagon, so what makes Emerson's approach stand out? Emerson has a three-pronged strategy that they call greening of, greening by, and greening with. Each pillar represents a different facet of their overall sustainability game plan.
Okay, I'm hooked. Break down these green pillars for me. What's the gist of each one?
Greening of is all about reducing their own environmental impact. They're walking the walk, putting their money where their mouth is.
Give me some examples. What are they actually doing to achieve that?
For starters, they're on this mission to uncover energy-saving opportunities at their facilities. They call them energy treasure hunts.
Energy treasure hunts. I love it.
It's like a sustainability-themed game show happening within the company. Teams go on these hunts to find creative ways to reduce energy consumption.
That's brilliant. It's engaging and effective. What else?
They're also making a big push to switch their vehicle fleet to electric vehicles. That's a huge step, especially for a global company like Emerson.
Okay, so they're definitely putting in the effort to shrink their own environmental footprint. What about greening by? How are they tackling that pillar?
Greening By is all about empowering their customers to become more sustainable. They're leveraging their automation expertise to help companies transition to renewable energy sources, manage their emissions more effectively, and even recycle plastics better.
So it's like they're saying, hey, we're not just going to reduce our impact, we're going to help you reduce yours too. It's a very collaborative approach.
Exactly. They've got this really cool partnership with a company called Pure Cycle Technologies that's doing some groundbreaking stuff with plastic recycling.
Oh, tell me more.
Through their technology, Pure Cycle can recycle polypropylene, which is a type of plastic found in everything from food containers to car parts, into a material that's basically good as new.
That's amazing. Most plastic recycling degrades the quality, so being able to recycle it into something that's basically virgin plastic, that's a game changer.
It really is. Yeah. And then there's Greening With, which is all about tackling those big, hairy sustainability challenges through collaboration. We're talking joining forces with governments, research institutions, and even competitors to find solutions that work on a larger scale.
I love that they're recognizing the power of collaboration. No one company has all the answers.
Absolutely. They're embracing a spirit of partnership, understanding that the challenges we face are too big for any one entity to solve alone.
This is fascinating stuff. But before we move on to Emerson's financials, I have to ask, with all this talk about sustainability and cutting-edge technology, what's the company culture like? What about their approach to governance?
Those are great questions, and thankfully, their ESG report shed some light on that too. One thing that stands out is their commitment to diversity and inclusion. They've set a bold target of doubling the representation of women globally and U.S. minorities in leadership roles by 2030.
That's great to hear, but are they actually putting their money where their mouth is?
They are. They've actually tied executive compensation to diversity targets. So, no pressure executives.
Now that's walking the walk. Tying executive pay to diversity goals sends a powerful message. It shows they're serious about fostering a more inclusive workplace.
Exactly. But let's circle back to their financials for a bit because there are some really interesting details in their report that you don't want to miss. Remember we were talking about adjusted EBITDA earlier?
Oh, I do. It's like the secret code to understanding a company's true earnings. Lead the way. I'm ready to decode some financials. Okay, so back to adjusted EBITDA. What kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Well, in 2023, Emerson's adjusted EBITDA reached $2.7 billion.
Okay, so that's a pretty penny. And how does that compare to the year before?
It's a solid 12% increase from 2022. But it's not just about the overall growth, it's about where that growth is coming from. And that's where it gets interesting. Remember we were talking about their intelligent devices segment and their software and control segment?
Right, those were the two big ones, weren't they?
Exactly. Both segments had a pretty good year, but the software and control segment really stole the show.
Because that's where all the automation magic is happening.
You got it. Now, their intelligent devices segment reached an adjusted EBITDA of $3.1 billion. That's respectable. But their software and control segment, hold on to your hats, we're talking a 31% jump from the previous year, reaching a whopping $719 million.
Wow, that's impressive. This laser focus on automation is clearly paying off. It makes those recent acquisitions, AspenTech and Micromine, seem even more strategic now.
Absolutely. Think of it this way. Emerson is essentially assembling a dream team of automation experts. They've got AspenTech bringing their A-game in industrial process optimization through software, and then there's Micromine with its specialized mining software. By bringing these companies and their technology into the fold, Emerson is creating this incredibly comprehensive and powerful suite of automation solutions.
It's like they're building an automation empire. But speaking of empires, let's not forget about that note receivable mystery you dangled earlier. You ready to unveil the secrets behind that financial cliffhanger?
Oh, you remembered. All right, all right. I can't resist a good reveal. Remember how Emerson sold off a majority stake in their climate technologies business?
Yeah, the one that's now called Copeland. The one that initially made me question their commitment to sustainability before we unpacked it.
That's the one. Well, that sale is directly connected to our mysterious note receivable. It's essentially a promise from the buyer, a private equity fund called Blackstone, to pay Emerson a hefty sum down the line.
So it's like an IOU, but on a massive corporate scale, with lots of zeros involved.
Precisely. And we're not talking chump change here. We're talking about a cool $2.25 billion. This note receivable is going to keep generating interest income for Emerson, adding a nice little bonus to their bottom line for years to come.
Okay, that is a power move. They streamline their business, double down on their strengths, and walk away with a multi-billion-dollar IOU that just keeps on giving. But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about numbers, but what about the human side of the equation? You mentioned their commitment to diversity and inclusion earlier. What's the deal there?
Right. Emerson is definitely taking a proactive stance on diversity and inclusion, and their ESG report backs that up with concrete examples. They've set this ambitious target of doubling the representation of women globally and U.S. minorities in leadership positions by 2030.
That's an admirable goal, but are they just talking the talk or are they actually walking the walk?
They are walking the walk, and they're putting their money where their mouth is literally.
Mm.
They've actually linked executive compensation to diversity outcomes.
Wow, now that's serious commitment. It shows that they're not just paying lip service to diversity, they're making it a core part of their business strategy.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that having a more diverse and inclusive workplace isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do for business.
It's about bringing a wider range of perspectives and experiences to the table.
Precisely. And it goes beyond just representation at the top. They're also investing in employee development programs and offering assistance to employees facing financial hardships. They seem to get that a company is only as strong as its people.
It's about cultivating a culture of support and empowerment at all levels. Speaking of culture, what about the broader picture of ethics and governance? We're diving deep into Emerson Electric, and that includes understanding their commitment to ethical business practices.
That's a critical aspect of any responsible business, and it seems like Emerson is taking it to heart. Their annual report highlights this really robust ethics program they have in place, with mandatory training for all employees. And it's not just a checkbox exercise for them. They're actively working to foster an ethical culture throughout the company.
That's good to hear. In today's world, with all its complexities, having a strong moral compass is more important than ever for businesses. But there's one more thing I wanted to touch on before we move on. You mentioned earlier that cybersecurity is a big focus for Emerson. Given their work in automation, I imagine that's more crucial than ever.
You're absolutely right. In our hyper-connected world, cybersecurity is paramount, especially for a company like Emerson that's dealing with critical infrastructure.
Right, because if their systems go down, it could have a ripple effect across entire industries.
Exactly. Their systems are controlling essential operations in so many different sectors. So ensuring their security isn't just good practice, it's an absolute necessity.
So how are they tackling this challenge? What specific steps are they taking to protect their systems?
They're not messing around when it comes to cybersecurity. They've implemented all the latest security protocols, poured resources into cutting-edge security technologies, and they've made sure that a cybersecurity-first mindset is ingrained throughout the company. But they didn't stop there. They went a step further to get external validation for their efforts.
Oh, really? External validation always piques my interest because it's one thing for a company to brag about its own achievements, but it's another thing entirely to have a third party give them a gold star. What kind of validation are we talking about here?
Remember those Safety X seals I mentioned earlier?
Wait, those mysterious seals are back. I knew there had to be more to that story.
I love how you're connecting the dots. These seals are not just for show. They hold a lot of weight, especially in the world of automation and security.
Okay, but break it down for me. What do they actually mean?
Think of them as the gold standard in security certification. And they're specifically designed for technologies that could potentially be targeted by terrorists.
Oh, wow, that's serious business.
It is. To earn these seals, Emerson Systems had to go through incredibly rigorous testing and evaluation by none other than the Department of Homeland Security.
The Department of Homeland Security, okay, that definitely ups the ante. We're not talking about a casual security check here.
Not at all. These seals mean that Emerson Systems meet the highest possible standards for security and resilience. They're essentially saying, bring on your most sophisticated cyber attacks because we're ready for them.
It's like they have the cybersecurity equivalent of Fort Knox protecting their technology.
Exactly. They're not just saying they take cybersecurity seriously. They're backing it up with concrete actions and independent verification.
That's what I call walking the walk. It sounds like Emerson Electric is taking a very holistic approach to their business. They're not just focused on the bottom line, but they're also prioritizing sustainability, their employees, and ethical practices.
They seem to understand that in today's business world, success isn't just about profits. It's about building a business that's both responsible and sustainable. a business that benefits all stakeholders.
It's about creating value not just for shareholders, but for employees, for customers, and even for the planet as a whole.
Precisely. They're embracing this multifaceted approach, recognizing that all these elements are interconnected and crucial for achieving long-term success.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've delved into Emerson's financial performance, their strategic focus on automation, their commitment to sustainability, and even peeked behind the curtain at their company culture.
We've uncovered some fascinating insights along the way, from those strategic divestitures to their multi-billion-dollar note receivable and those really ambitious diversity goals.
It's like they're saying, look, we've got these amazing tools, let's use them to build a brighter future together. But it makes you wonder, with all this talk about automation as a key to a more sustainable future, is technology alone really enough to solve the huge environmental problems we face? It's like having the most fuel-efficient car in the world, a step in the right direction, sure, but what good is it if everyone's still stuck in a massive traffic jam?
It's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Technology is a game changer, no doubt, but it's only one piece of the puzzle.
Mm.
We can't just innovate our way out of this. We need a more fundamental shift.
So it's not just about having the right tools, it's about using those tools within a system that actually supports sustainability. What else needs to change? What other pieces need to fall into place?
We need to look at the bigger picture. Government, policies and regulations, consumer behavior, corporate responsibility. It's a complex issue that requires a multi-pronged approach.
It's like they're saying, we've got the tools, let's work together to build a brighter future together. And Emerson seems to understand that. They're not shying away from collaboration. They're partnering with governments, research institutions, even their competitors. It's refreshing to see a company acknowledge that they don't have all the answers and that real progress requires a collective effort.
Exactly. And it circles back to what we were talking about earlier about their commitment to sustainability. It's not just about reducing their own footprint. It's about empowering others to do the same. And that's where their automation expertise really comes into play.
It's like they're saying, we've got the tools, let's work together to build a more sustainable future.
Exactly. That's a powerful message and one that gives me hope.
Me too. Well, there you have it, a deep dive into Emerson Electric. We've explored their financial performance, their focus on automation and sustainability, and even peeked behind the curtain at their company culture.
We've uncovered some fascinating insights along the way, from those strategic divestitures to their multi-billion-dollar note receivable and those really ambitious diversity goals.
It's been quite a journey, and we hope this deep dive has given you a clearer picture of where Emerson stands today and where they're headed in the future. Remember, knowledge is power. Now you're armed with some serious insights to impress your friends at your next trivia night.
Or maybe even spark a thought-provoking conversation about the role of automation in creating a more sustainable future.
Exactly. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.